Welcome to Now in the 90s, where we look at the game releases of 30 years ago today. This week, a huge Nintendo franchise comes to the Game Boy, another SNK fighter, and Konami attempts a mascot platformer. Hi, I'm your host, Jared, and today is August 11th, 1993. This video is brought to you by NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/now90s or use a link in the description below to get extra subscription time. Unlike the 90s, these days, everything is connected to the internet. Your computer, your game consoles, your phones, your refrigerators. You're at risk unless you protect yourself, like with NordVPN. Imagine getting an email from Nintendo.net saying you won a free game, only it's a phishing scam designed to steal your banking information. NordVPN's threat protection feature recognizes malicious links and warns you about anything dangerous. Or imagine trying to log on to some public Wi-Fi, like at a cafe or airport. There could easily be someone there spying on all of your data and using it for nefarious purposes. NordVPN can encrypt your internet data to keep nosy fingers out. It's all that and more. NordVPN can safeguard your passwords, prevent malware, and scan files to avoid ransomware downloads. You can use the link in the description to get started on keeping yourself safe. Our special code lets you sign up for a 2-year plan at a huge discount and gets you 4 extra months for free. Go to nordvpn.com/now90s or click the link in the description below to save on a 2-year plan with 4 bonus months and get yourself protected today. And once again, thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. A game so nice, it's been remade twice. Released in August 1993 was The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Game Boy.
Down with Zelda from the very start. I got the heart, it's Mars to play the part. Down with Zelda. Creeping through with an overhead view, cause a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. So I stay on track, collect the facts, never cut the slack, and I always watch my back for Jack. Down with Zelda, yeah. Soon as then I'm the man with the plan, cause the power's in my head and the power's in my hand. Down with Zelda.
Zelda Link's Awakening is an isometric adventure game. Play as Link, shipwrecked onto Koholint Island as he tries to find his way home. Search the island, defeat monsters, and help all kinds of local townsfolk to discover more clues. Dive deep into dungeons to collect new items and mystical instruments. Collect them all and awaken the great windfish to finally escape. Link's Awakening began life on the Game Boy as a port of Zelda: Link to the Past. The dev team just got fancy new development tools in for this Nintendo Game Boy thing, so after hours at the office, they started to mess around with the tools to see what they could come up with. It quickly became a Zelda game, one that they would continue to work on in secret. Because it was off the record, it allowed them to include several unauthorized elements into the game. Things like cameo appearances of Kirby, Goombas, Mr. Right from SimCity, and more. These were allowed to remain for the game's final release. This is a game that began life and was developed without the usual names behind the Zelda series. Shigeru Miyamoto was not the director, Koji Kondo didn't do the music, and Eiji Aonuma didn't start on the Zelda series until Ocarina of Time. Link's Awakening introduced numerous gameplay elements now considered staples of Zelda games. It was the first one to have a long, multi-item trade quest, it had you learn multiple songs for a musical instrument, and it was the Zelda game to introduce a fishing minigame. Promotion for Link's Awakening was big. Previews for the game started months earlier. Electronic Gaming Monthly showcased the game in their March 1993 issue 44. Then again in issue 49 with 2 pages including a walkthrough of the first dungeon. Nintendo Power gave an overview in the May 1993 issue with 4 pages. Of course, the 50th issue of Nintendo Power was celebrated with an all-gold cover, showcasing the all-new Zelda for Game Boy by giving a whopping 10-page preview which consisted of walkthroughs of how to beat the first 3 dungeons of the game. The last page also kind of spoils the ending a little bit. That isn't all. Nintendo held a contest called the Nintendo Whistle Stop Tour. 18 gaming enthusiasts plus 6 industry professionals all boarded a train in New York City headed for Seattle on Friday, August 13th, 1993. They would travel almost non-stop to Seattle, Washington. Everyone was given a fresh Game Boy, packs of batteries, and a shiny new copy of The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Whoever could get the farthest by the end of the trip would get $1,000 donated in their name to a charity of their choice. The winner was Jeff Hansen, the same Jeff Hansen who won the Nintendo World Championship Youth category in 1990. Naturally, the game reviewed extremely well. Electronic Gaming Monthly awarded it 8s and a 9 out of 10, along with the Editor's Choice Gold Award. And, in a surprising show of restraint, Nintendo Power never reviewed it. Zelda Link's Awakening sold millions of units. It stayed as a Game Boy top seller for 90 months. It helped give Nintendo their most profitable year ever. And of course, the game was remade twice. Zelda Link's Awakening DX was released in 1998 as an enhanced port compatible with the Game Boy Color. It provided full color graphics for the entire game, and when played on a Game Boy Color, a new dungeon to explore and new items to find. It was then remade again in 2019 for the Nintendo Switch as a full-on remake. If you want to play the Game Boy version though, you can play Link's Awakening DX using the Nintendo Switch Online service. SNK launches another iconic franchise. Released on August 11th, 1993 for the Neo Geo AES, was Samurai Shodown. Samurai Shodown is a one-on-one fighting game. Choose from a variety of characters, all with their own characteristics and special moves, to take down a tournament ladder of opponents. Defeat them all to get to the final boss and defeat him for a cutscene ending for your selected character. Get into weapon clashes, destroy the environment a little, and fill your power meter for even more powerful moves. And of course, go head-to-head against another player in versus mode. Samurai Shodown was developed by SNK, beginning life as a side-scrolling beat 'em up and first released in arcades in July 1993, coming to home consoles a month later. It's the first fighting game to be weapon-based. Every single character has a different weapon they use to fight and use special moves. It also means that characters can drop their weapon, forcing them to fight barehanded until they pick it back up. Also, every now and then some dude runs by and either throws out some life-restoring food or a bomb. Samurai Shodown also included something that other SNK fighters didn't: blood. Streaks of blood would fly out from hard hits, and characters had fatal deaths, where a strong hit would basically cause an artery to rupture and gush blood out all over the victor. This violence was included because of, what else? Mortal Kombat. The popularity over that violence led directly to the inclusion of blood in Samurai Shodown, as stated by game director Yasuo Adachi. The violence was also getting Mortal Kombat in trouble already, so to play it safe, the home port of Samurai Shodown is censored, but through the specific system used to play it. Inserting a copy of the game into a North American Neo Geo AES console changes the blood to white sweat, but that same cartridge put into a Japanese AES would have all the blood intact. This led to North American owners modding their consoles so that they could see all the violence. Regardless, the game is great and people loved it. They found every part of it impressive. The graphics, the sound, the way the camera constantly moves with the action. GamePro magazine awarded it perfect scores. Game Fan magazine gave it around a 96% score, and Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a straight 9 out of 10 and the Editor's Choice Platinum Award. Samurai Shodown would go on to be another staple series for SNK. There would be numerous sequels, character crossovers, spin-offs, and collections. You could play 7 of these games right now with the Samurai Shodown Neo Geo Collection, available on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and on Steam. The mascot platformer race hasn't slowed down a bit. Released on August 5th, 1993 for the Sega Genesis, was Rocket Knight Adventures.
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy squealed when I smoked him like a greasy slab of sausage.
Go, Freddy! Join Sparkster to crush the swine army in Konami's Rocket Knight Adventures for Sega Genesis. Unleash your animal urges with the only possum to hang with. Pigs fly with a flash of his sword and he's rocket-powered.
I love the smell of bacon in the morning.
Play Possum on Rocket Knight Adventures from Konami.
Rocket Knight Adventures is a side-scrolling action platformer. Run, jump, and rocket boost your way through multiple levels. You also have a sword for slashing and range attacks, and to also stab anything in your jetpack's way. That jetpack also provides for some frantic platforming, letting you rocket into any direction, bounce off walls, and hit enemies. Defeat bosses at the end of levels, occasionally do some horizontal shoot-'em-up levels, and never stop charging your jetpack. Rocket Knight Adventures was developed and published by Konami, and it was their attempt to have someone stand alongside Sonic and Mario. That someone is Sparkster. But Konami isn't even the one who made him. In the Amazon web series Video Game Box Art, longtime Konami illustrator Tom Dubois explained how he made Sparkster. Tom had made several box arts for Konami in the past, including Blades of Steel, Turtles in Time, Contra 3. Normally, box art artists are brought on at the end once a project is completed. Instead, Konami approached Tom about this new game idea that they were very early on in development, a marsupial with a rocket pack. However, instead of sending him design documents so that he could create a box art for the game, Konami had no idea what Sparkster should look like. They told Tom just to draw something up, and he created numerous sketches that he submitted back. Konami picked out the design that would become Sparkster, which was Tom Dubois' least favorite one that he did. Rocket Knight Adventures is another one of those Sega games that's really meant to show off that blast processing. It's also a really difficult game. It's also one where if you try to play on easy, you don't get the real ending and you have to start over on hard. Konami pushed to make Sparkster their thing. Each game included an offer to get a free Sparkster t-shirt. Konami paid Electronic Gaming Monthly to have a crossword contest where people could potentially win the game, a t-shirt, and a Rocket Knight bomber jacket. Sparkster was also used in future Konami advertising. Sparkster also made cameo appearances in other Konami games over the years, and even appeared in the official Sonic the Hedgehog comic in 1995. And of course, the game kicks ass. One of the overlooked Sega games of the time, even though it still got really good reviews. GamePro magazine gave it nothing but high remarks, and every EGM reviewer awarded it an 8 and the Editor's Choice Gold Award. The Rocket Knight Adventures series would continue. The Super NES would get Sparkster in 1994, a sort of spin-off side story game, and at the same time, the Sega Genesis would get Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2, which is a direct sequel. And does anyone else remember when Rocket Knight got a sort of reboot sequel in like 2010 for Xbox Live Arcade? It was just kind of okay. For whatever reason though, Konami has all but forgotten about this series. None of the Rocket Knight games have ever been ported to anything else. It's not even on either Sega Genesis Mini. But that weird 2010 reboot is still available on Steam, if you want that. As for the other games released this week, here's Editor Dylan.
People in our Patreon suggested I play the Genesis version of The Immortal because it's, quote, an ungodly level of hard. So, for the sake of time, I'll just play it until I get a game over. We begin by learning that the Make Text Go Faster button is also the Skip Text button. Dunrick, you have come to save me. I am in the... This explains our old teacher's disappearance. Your name is not... My name is not I then approach the table next to me, which immediately starts the music over. So naturally, I spent the next literal 30 seconds having fun with that. I see a dark spot on the ground and I'm told it might be a good idea to move. Oh yeah, and why is that? Oh my god, holy shit! Is that a fucking graboid? Take 2. I then try moving non-stop as the game suggested, despite knowing that graboids can pinpoint your location easier based on movement. Why would Kevin Bacon lie about that? So I move around and oh, Kevin Bacon was right! Take 3, sprint to door, talk to orc, button mash, blow up orc, talk to second orc, get orced, game over. Good game, I recommend it. I'm more of a side-scroller guy, though. Kinda jealous that I didn't get an awesome title like Rocket Knight. I want to fly around on a jetpack. Hey, 1993, where are all those mascot platformers I keep hearing about? Tinhead is a mascot platformer about a robot trying to collect all the stars a la Mario 64. Only Bowser is an evil intergalactic goblin named Grimsquidge. Grimsquidge. That's fun to say. But the stars have eyes and a mouth, meaning they scream in fear until you rescue them. So get off your robot ass and go through several levels, all with varying degrees of parallax scrolling. Shoot baddies with your dinky-filling headcannon, grab all those terrified stars, and best of all, ride around on a jetpack. Hell yeah, now we're talking. And if you're a weirdo who doesn't like jetpacks, don't fret. You could still use this objectively less cool propeller. But even Rocket Knight didn't have the courage to travel by bouncy ball, which I think we can all agree is the classiest mode of transportation. Tinhead is like a mix of Bob with a dash of Decapitac and a pinch of Vectorman. But if you're an animal mascot platforming purist and like to go fast using your own 2 feet, Socket is about rolling around at the speed of electricity. Also, you don't roll. Also, you're a bird. Also, your batteries suck. Socket's whole gimmick here is you have an extension cord tail that plugs into a well, socket. I'm sure they would have named him Sparkster if it wasn't already taken. You're always running out of electricity, and if you don't constantly recharge any chance you get, then you run out of juice and gotta try again. Think Supersonic, but bird. It's got some sweet Genesis tunes though. It's one of the better Sonic clones with some treasure flair thrown in, and it's a sprinkling of Chibi Robo. What's that? You want more Genesis platforms? You got it, Toots. High Seas Havoc is basically what you'd get if Treasure made a pirate-themed Capcom Disney platformer. Dude, Bubsy is jacked! But you can't not see the Capcom Disney comparison, right? Especially the bosses. They feel like they're straight out of Mickey's Magical Quest, which is nuts because it's actually made by Data East of Joe and Mac fame. And you know what? Of all the games I played today, this one might be the best. It's got such a charming aesthetic, a tried and true theme, but most importantly, it's not Bubsy, which also came out this week on Genesis, giving us a grand total of 8 games released on these 3 consoles this week in 1993. Our Patreon gives you the opportunity to dictate what I focus on in this segment. I was only going to give a couple sentences to The Immortal, but some patrons showed interest, so I put more time into it. So if there's something I absolutely need to cover on this segment, that would be the way to make sure I mention it here. Take it easy, y'all.
Thank you, Dylan. Here in the Collector's Corner, it's not hard to find Link's Awakening. It released costing $39.95. Now, you can get just the game for $30 and a complete in-box copy for $200. Samurai Shodown is a Neo Geo game, so it released costing $239.95. Since then, it's very cheap. Now it's only $40, and even a complete one is only $90. Despite being a Genesis cult classic, Rocket Knight Adventures isn't too valuable either. A game cartridge alone is currently worth $25, and the case and manual only brings it up to $80. And that's it for today. Next week, Capcom's Ninja returns, another Sega RPG, and the world's very first HD remaster collection. I'm your host, Jared, and this was Now in the 90s. Thank you so much for watching Now in the 90s. I want to thank some patrons like Samuel Allen and Shay O'Neill. Please like the video and leave a comment down below, especially if you played any of the games this week, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you already are a subscriber, thank you so much for watching this show every single Friday. If you're in a position to try to help support the channel, please consider checking out our Patreon. The link's in the description down below. I remember when Link's Awakening came out very vividly because it was right before the new school year. And right on the first week of school, there was an older kid on the bus who sat one seat ahead of me and off to the side, and he had a Game Boy, and he kept playing Link's Awakening, specifically the fishing mini game, and I had to sit there and hear him constantly shout out, "Oh, I got another fish! It's a lunker!" I hated that kid.